I visited Vardø in Norway back in 2019 because I wanted to learn about the witch trials which took place there in the 1600s. I've asked Eric Hansen to talk you through the story about the witch trials on my behalf, as I'm losing my voice a little. So over to you, Eric. Thank you, mate.
History of Vardø. Roland, I want to tell your listeners about the history of Vardø so they can get a good picture of the Icelandic history. Vardø, roughly translated to Island of the Wolf, is a town and municipality in Finnmark. As of January 2020, 1,100 inhabitants lived in the town of Vardø. The municipality borders the neighboring municipalities of Vadsø in the southwest and Båtsfjord in the northwest, while it has a coastline towards the Barents Sea and Russia in the other direction. Vardø is the oldest city in northern Norway, just ahead of Hammerfest, which gained city status somewhat later in 1789. Vardø is Finnmark's oldest fishing village and is known as the Pomor capital when the town in the 19th century was a center for trade with Russia. The witchcraft trials in Finnmark. When we think of witch trials, we tend to think of the Salem, Massachusetts, witch trials first and foremost. Yet in Finnmark, 135 people were accused of witchcraft in the 1600s. The majority of these cases took place in Vardø and Vadsø. The witchcraft trials in Finnmark took place towards the end of the witch trials period, which saw the persecution of witches all over Europe. The Finnmark witchcraft trials were very well recorded, and the court records from the 1600s still exist. These records are now kept in codex form in the regional state archives of Tromsø, Norway. The witchcraft trials in Finnmark, northern Norway. Roland would recommend a book by Norwegian author Professor Liv Helene Wilhelmsen of The Witchcraft Trials in Finnmark, northern Norway. The book informs readers about what happened in Finnmark courtrooms 400 years ago. Photographic images of the court papers are a precious material to witchcraft researchers. Katjana Edvardsen translated the book into English. Persecuted. During the witchcraft trials in Finnmark, 135 persons, 11 women and 24 men were prosecuted for practicing witchcraft. Most of them lived in Vardø or Vadsø. Vardøhus Castle and the town's immediate surroundings played an essential part in the trials. Of the persons tried, 91 persons, 77 women and 14 men were executed. Use of torture was every day during the Finnmark witchcraft trials, and the severest torture were carried out of the castle. Around half of these people, the vast majority of ordinary Norwegian coastal women, had their death sentence proclaimed in Vardø itself. Cluster trials. The witch hunt took place in clusters of short trials. Most of the sentences were passed in so-called panics, with one trial leading to another in rapid succession. Judiciary in Vardø handed down more judgments in witchcraft cases than elsewhere in the region. It is probably related to its proximity to the administration site and Vardø as the center for exercising authority. The authorities must have felt the most severe threat in their immediate neighborhoods. But if you look more closely, there were actually more witches from the Vadsø area, Andersby, Vadsø and Ekerøy, than from Vardø and Kiberg. Samis and witches. Norwegians and Samis lived side by side in 17th century Finnmark, and both ethnic groups suffered from the ongoing persecution of witches. Approximately 4 out of every 5 persons accused of practicing witchcraft in Finnmark were Norwegians. The others were Samis. Some say ethnic cleansing was happening, and others say shamanic Samis were all witches. Of course, the unusually rich source situation is one reason historians can document so many magical cases from Finnmark. Nevertheless, Vardø, which was called the county in the 17th century, has undoubtedly been subjected to pervasive and harsh waves of persecution. The process of determining if one is a witch. These processes are among the worst in Europe, characterized by gruesome and brutal chain processes over a short period. Some women who insisted on their innocence were tortured to death before final judgment. In the court records, you can read about torture with sulfur and glowing tongues. Water ordeal. In the court records, you can read how many of these so-called witches were put to the water ordeal. The outcome of the water ordeal was often used as evidence in a witchcraft trial, as it was held in Gaudi's judgment. The procedure consisted of throwing the accused person into the sea with his or her hands and feet tied. Water, considered a sacred element, was vowed to repel evil. If the suspect rose to the surface and floated, this indicated guilt. The sinking was a sign of innocence. 1/3 of all who were executed in connection with the Finnmark witchcraft trials were subjected to the water ordeal, and every one of them floated. The accused. Out of the 135 accused, I have just cited a few cases. Marit Tammisdatter came from the district assembly in Vardø. In Vardø, they had completed 2 severe sorcery cases and sentenced 2 women to 4 and bonfires. One of these witches was Ingeborg Jørgensdatter from Honningberg, midway between Vardø and Makau. Ingeborg pointed out Marit as a witch solely because she was too attractive. After Ingeborg underwent a failed water test, she floated and was tortured. She made the following accusation against Marit. 1. Marit should have destroyed at least 6 people in Makau. We believe that these are accidents at sea, as Ingeborg said that Marit had acted in the creation of a goose at the time of the evil attacks. 2. Marit, together with Ingeborg and 2 women from Kjellvik, helped to cause the hunt for Mikkel Lauritzen, a well-known skipper and shipowner from Troms. The hunting had gone down on the Alta Fjord 3 years ago, in 1631. 3. Marit was with Ingeborg and a woman from Kjellvik, who had destroyed a boat from Kjellvik a few years ago. On this occasion, the women floated on the sea like swans. When Marit returned to court after the failed water test, she still would not admit anything. However, the bailiff had enough. He asked the court to give a verdict based on the evidence available. Even the bailiff dismissed the death penalty. In the sentencing, the court emphasized Ingeborg's 3 allegations and the water test. On this basis, the court held that Marit was guilty of devil's work. In doing so, she had violated the Danish-Norwegian Kinge's regulation of sorcery. They sentenced her to death. For her serious crime, she was to lose her life to 4 and bonfire. Anne Lauritzdatter. Anne Lauritzdatter lived in Vadsø and was announced by Karen Edisdatter as a witch. Lauritzdatter was summoned to the court at Vardøhus Castle on the 16th of February 1621, accused of practicing witchcraft. She was subjected to the water ordeal and floated. Anne Lauritzdatter confession. 1. That Satan came to her when she was working in the turf pits and told her to go with him. 2. That she asked who he was and was told he was the devil. 3. That he was with her half that day, after which she felt very heavy. 4. That he next came to her on a Christmas Eve, hairy and with horns. 5. That she went with him and 40 other witches to Vardø, and they drank on Ballvollen. 6. That she recognized the houses and outhouses in Vardø and knew who owned them. 7. That Kirsten Sørensdatter was the admiral, leading them with pipe and drums. 8. That she was in the likeness of a raven, whereas other women were sharpened as wolves. 9. That Else B. Knutsdatter, in the likeness of a falcon, ser ved dem be on Ballvollen. 10. That as she reached Vadsø on her way home from Ballvollen, bells she me for service. 11. That once on a Sunday, she brought salt to church and cured a sick cow with it. 12. That she could not weep or confess her sins before she was cast into the sea. 13. That this was because the evil devil had tongue-tied her. Lauritzdatter was convicted of the practice of witchcraft and sentenced to death by 4. Mari Olsdatter. The court records show that among the many tragic fates is that of 12-year-old Mari Olsdatter, who came from Vadsø. Mari's confession was that she had celebrated sometimes Evad the witch mountain domen in 1662 with Satan himself and several other sorcerers. Some clan evening included a tour of hell. Satan led the tour in the sulfur pool. As stated in the court papers, he showed the sorceress women the nature and glory of the place. One of these, glorious, was abundant boiling water deep in a valley. Mari explained that many people laid and howled like cats during the court hearing. Throughout Mari's story, the court was given the names of several other women in the local community who had participated in the visit to hell. After getting acquainted with the bad Satan's dwelling, it was a midsummer party at the domen. Mari recalls to the court. Upon the rocky cliffs in the bright summer night, he played a ring dance on his reed violin. During the hearing in Vadsø, Mari carefully described how hell each of his hands during the dance. After the dance, Satan poured beer into the women from a silver bowl. The sanctuary evening at Domen in 1662 was rounded off by Satan accompanying each woman to their homes in Andersby, Vadsø, Ekkerøy, Kiberg and Vardø. Mari's confession about who had participated in the witch sabbath with Satan led to the death sentence of several named women. The prosecutor in the case, the Kingi's bailiff Nils Sørensen Fiel, also wanted to burn the troll kid, Mari Olsdatter, for her dealings with the art of the fuck. The court did not follow the prosecutor's recommendation on the death sentence but appealed the case to the layman. They justified the complaint that Mari was just an incompetent little child who had not come of age and indicated that she was pretty insane. The court judge sentenced Mari to an improved stay at Bergens Children's and Children's Home. She was thus among the minority of those who were not burned during Norway's worst witch trials in 1662 and 1663. Steilneset Court and Memorial. The court records are a rich source of information and are detailed in terms of time and place for case processing and judgment. Still, they exhibit no specifics to location information and specific timeliness for the burning of convicted sorcerers. In a case from March 1663, Steilneset is mentioned as a gathering place for a group of sorcerers. There is no concrete documented evidence about the place where witches were actually burned in Vardø. Either way, the place for witchcraft in Vardø has been close to the fortress, and most likely, it is the Steilneset right across the old fort. The Witches Memorial. While in Vardø, one must visit the Witches Memorial, a collaboration between Pritzker Prize-winning architect Peter Zumthor and the late artist Louise Bourgeois. The Steilneset Memorial exhibit emphasizes what is individual for every person who was executed during the witch hunt in Finnmark. Each woman and man is named by her or his name. The texts serve as a reminder of how the injustice of an implacable judiciary affects the community. They also reflect the diversity, imagination, stamina and strength of the people involved. Steilneset Memorial. Peter Xontor designed the memorial hall, which consists of a long pine scaffold. Between the sticks hangs a cocoon of wood that houses a black, 125-meter-long hallway illuminated by 91 small windows, one for each victim. On the walls inside, each victim has their own tablet. Liv Helene Willumsen at the University of Tromsø designed simple texts summarizing our information about each process. Eternal Flame. The French-American artist Louise Bourgeois's sculpture, The Damned, The Possessed and the Beloved, is an eternal flame that flares up from a chair, which again stands inside a concrete cone. 7 round mirrors reflect the flames, reminiscent of judges around the accused. Yet one might even see the round mirrors as scrying mirrors, looking into the world of the accused witches. The sculpture is all framed by a sooty glass cube, which keeps you warm in the coldest days. Writer Donna Wheeler observed that the eternal flame, this worn-out symbol of memory and reflection, is here rebed for any redeeming quality, it only illuminates its own destructive image. Steilneset's memorial site does not give the visitor tranquility, it provides insanity and insight into the darkest sides of human nature. Would it be worth a visit? The Witch Monument is a short walk from the center of Vardø, on the same side as Vardøhus fortress and the quay where the boats go to Hornøya. There might not be lots to do for tourists, but visit us and feel the spirituality of this small island. Thank you, Roland, for allowing me to be the narrator of your film. Get well, my friend, I will beat my drum for you, and I hope you come back soon.